So I'm thinking, what can I do differently? There's a lot of fishing videos out there. One of the things that sort of annoys me is I watch YouTube fishing videos to get an idea of where to fish. And many of them don't tell you where they're fishing. They'll go out on a pier and it's a big secret as to what pier they're on. I don't see the point of that. Maybe they have too many followers and they're afraid that the pier is going to get inundated with fishermen if they start catching fish. To me, I want to make videos and I want to tell you guys where I'm fishing. So that way, if you're out of town and you're making plans to go fishing where I fish, you'll have a good idea where to fish. Now, I haven't been super successful in catching a ton of fish, so I don't think there's going to be a problem with a horde of people, gathering around where I shot my videos. But sooner or later, we're going to catch some fish. Striper season is upon us in the Northeast, so that should be entertaining, because last year we caught some big stripers. My brother had a couple of 50-inch stripers, probably 40 to 50 pounds, so that'll be fun. So stay tuned for that. Hey YouTubers, Chris here from Salty Life. How are you? I was down in Florida last weekend. I'm editing that video now. I'm just sitting in my car next to the Hudson River now, just shooting an intro for that video that I'm editing. It's finally warming up here in the Northeast. As I said, I was sitting in my car shooting this intro, and I'm sitting in this park right next to the Hudson River. Very blustery and windy and pretty chilly. It's like 35, 38 degrees out. You can see some of the ice still on the banks of the Hudson River. Last week, the Hudson River was full of ice, so we're going in the right direction. I can't wait for the browns to turn into greens. What a difference it makes from being down in the Florida Keys last week, where it was 75 degrees and sunny every day for the 4 days I was down there. So this here is Hunter Mountain in upstate New York, and you can see the snowflakes in the background as the wind blows by. So snow still on the ski slopes. People still enjoying skiing in the spring. So let's get to Florida and see what's happening. I did head down to Florida Thursday night from Newark, New Jersey. Landed at Fort Lauderdale, picked up a rental car, drove down to Islamorada, fished the Channel 2 bridge and Channel 5 bridge with my nephew. If I had to do it all over again, I think I might fly in the morning instead of flying at night. I was up all night until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where I cried uncle and had to take a 2-hour nap before we drove back to the Boynton Beach area so I could crash at my nephew's place. And then the next day we fished the Boynton Beach Inlet, which was pretty cool. You'll see some videos of that. So here we are at the Channel 2 bridge just south of Islamorada. You can see the beautiful sunset in the background. In a minute here you'll see my nephew Ralph come up, and it was pretty windy.
5 mile an hour breeze, they said. They lied.
Sunrise in Islamorada. Channel 2 bridge. I've not caught anything yet. Not even bait fish. So we fished here for a couple hours. Had some bites, probably some small pinfish and whatnot. Wasn't unable to hook anything. But we did see about 100 feet away an angler. I thought he was snagged because his pole was bent over pretty good. We watched. We did see a sea turtle surface. We thought maybe he hooked a sea turtle. Then he started waving for us to come down and give him a hand. And this is what happened after we secured his pier net. So it turns out the angler, his name is Paul, hooked a nice sized Jack Crevalle, which we were able to get up to the pier. The interesting part of this story is Paul lives about 2 hours above me in New York State. Alright.
I'll tell you something, I couldn't have done it by myself. Look at that. That's a nice fish. That's the biggest fish, the biggest one I ever caught. Pull this string up so it don't get tangled. There's some fucking deer. Bunch of fish. Well, thank you, sir.
What's your name?
Ralph. I appreciate that.
What's your name?
Paul. Paul.
Good job, Paul.
Thank you.
So after a couple hours of fishing, we decided to go and search for some breakfast. We found this place called Mangrove Mike's and had a great breakfast about 8 miles north of where we were fishing. All right, here's Ralph hanging out at the Channel 5 bridge in Islamorada. Beautiful out today. Absolutely gorgeous. We caught a hogfish first thing. Bunch of small mangrove snappers. And right now we're trying out some pinfish. You can see we got the rods all laid out here. Couldn't ask for a better day. You see me here with a hogfish. That was our first fish of the day. And we did catch some snappers after that. Our first fish in the Florida Keys. Say goodbye, Mr. Hogfish. And he swam. So that sound you heard in the background was a construction crew working on the pylon of the bridge. It was pretty loud, but we asked them to stop while we were there fishing, but they ignored us. Just kidding, we didn't do that. So as you can see, the water was beautiful. We fished the tide change. The bite slowed down a bit, but we did have one runoff. Here's Ralph contemplating life. He's getting married in a couple months, so I'm sure he has wedding plans running through his head. But he, one of his rods, he had a pinfish on, and it took off like crazy. Pretty much spooled it. He could not turn the fish, and ended up breaking him off. But what a beautiful day. The weather could not have been nicer. Here you see our fishing wagon that we brought along because the piers are pretty long. Our pier net. We fished until about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Then it was time for a little 2-hour nap before the drive back up north to Ralph's house at Boynton Beach. So after a good night's sleep, I took a shower, got cleaned up, and then came out to see Ralph and Leslie's cat, Merlin, making himself at home on my suitcase. He would not move until I had to gently dump him off my suitcase. What a pretty cat. So that morning we headed out to the Boynton Beach Inlet, which is a very busy inlet, apparently, if you're heading out to the ocean. Soon you'll see some boats go by. It was a super calm day, apparently. It's usually not this calm. The water was crystal clear. I guess we got there at the change of tides, but you could see all kinds of fish in the water. It was very interesting because as the tide changed, coming to the outgoing tide, you can see the clarity of the water change with all the sediment and silt from the back bays rushing through the inlet. You could no longer see the bottom. Couldn't see the fish as clearly as you could before that. Here we are on the ocean side of the inlet. We just took a walk to scout out the fishing situation before gathering our fishing equipment and bringing it out to the end of the pier. We fished for several hours. Didn't had a few bites, but we did not hook anything. As the day went on, the calm inlet got more turbulent. It was interesting to see the boats passing by the whole time. I did see a couple people catch some fish. Guy next to me caught a nice sheep's head, as you can see here.
What's your name?
Danny.
Good catch, Danny.
Thank you.
Boynton Beach Pier.
First sheep's head for me. Sir.
Very good.
I didn't catch it on camera, but I also saw a gentleman next to me hook a snook and took off and then wrapped himself around a pylon. I got cut off, but it was a nice sized fish. So then it was time to drive north for 4 hours to Crystal River. As you can see here, the journey up the Florida Turnpike through the middle of the state is pretty uneventful. So, some tips on traveling and rental cars and that kind of thing. In Fort Lauderdale, when I landed the shuttle bus to the rental car center, it was 1 o'clock at night, or in the morning, I should say, and there must have been 60 people in line. 20 people fit on a shuttle bus. So I had to wait for the bus to do its run 3 times because it seemed there was only one bus running the route. So that was a pain. It probably took a good hour and a half to pick up the rental car. And as usual, they didn't have the car I selected. So he tried to give me a different car, which wasn't going to work. I spoke to the agent. I said, look, man, I'm picking up some fishing rods. I need some room. He said, well, is it just you? I said, well, yeah, it's just me, but I need room for fishing rods. And he kind of sighed and said, well, I do have a minivan. I said, well, that's perfect. You give me the minivan for the same price and we're good to go. He said he did, but when I returned the car, it was $100 more than I anticipated. So I'm trying to fight with budget now to see what's going on. Hopefully I win that budget. I have the reservation with the amount that, with taxes and fees and everything, it should have been. And it was $100 more when I paid the bill. So we'll see what happens. It is interesting now, you don't get a formal contract when you rent a car. Normally, I'm used to you getting all the details before you sign on the dotted line. Now they hand you a little sheet of paper with a QR code that supposedly you could scan that code and get your rental agreement. I tried the next day and I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out where the rental agreement is. All I got was the fine print of the contract and not how much they're charging me and all that stuff. I'm pretty tech savvy. I wouldn't say I'm the best. I mean, nowadays everything changes so much. You need a 25-year-old kid to figure it out for you. But I don't know. I guess I'm at their mercy. But $100 is $100, and I'm hoping to get that back. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. Another good tip when renting cars is to walk around the car and take pictures of any scrapes or dents that you might see, because if they try to charge you for that, at least you'll have proof that it was there before you rented the car. So I stayed in Beverly Hills, Florida, right outside Crystal River. Got up at 6 a.m. to head towards Crystal River. It was pretty foggy in the morning. So here you can see the visibility is very low, but it was about a 10 to 15 minute drive to Crystal River. So I'm heading towards Fort Island Trail Park, and there's a bait store on the right hand side on the access road to the park. The gentleman there gave me some tips on where to fish. So the first place I tried was the actual park, as you'll see here. It's a very nice park with some grills and bathrooms on site. So if I had known what I was going to get into, I may have brought some food with me. This would be a great place to have a picnic. You can see the pier in the background, and the bathrooms are over there by the trees. The weather was gorgeous. There was no wind in the morning. I think I caught the change of tides again because the water was not running quickly when I got there. But it did pick up. The wind picked up a little bit and the tide started to run a lot faster within the next hour or two. Lots of wildlife. Crystal River is home to a ton of manatees. Not far away, Homosassa Springs is the manatee exhibit there. But this, I did fish this pier. Um, I started on this side and kind of watched the sunrise. Got a few bites. Got more snags than bites. But I had one significant bite. I don't know what it was. I thought maybe it might have been a sheep's head, but who knows. I did venture down to the other end of the pier because the current started to run in that direction. So as the current picked up, the wind also picked up a bit. You could see plenty of wildlife in this area. There were also several manatees that surfaced. Unfortunately, I did not catch them on with the camera. Every time they came up, I tried to turn the camera on, and then they submerged. But they were plentiful, and I'm glad I did not hook one. So that was successful. I did have a couple bites next to that sign, but I believe they were smaller bait fish because I was unable to hook anything. Fished here for a couple hours, and then I decided to move on to the Zello trail that the man at the bait store suggested. So if you go back out to the main road, go 2 lights down on the right, make a right onto Ozillo Trail, follow it several miles around, winding turns, and plenty of places to fish. You come across Peck's Old Port Cove Seafood Restaurant on the right. Just past that on the left, there is plenty of fishing area on both sides, but the left side looked better to me as the current was running from the right to the left. As you can see here, there's plenty of parking off the side of the road. This looked like a very inviting place to fish, so I tried it out for an hour or two. Unfortunately, I did not catch anything, but as you see this gentleman on my left here, he said he caught several redfish and some black drum right next to this current. So after he left, I gave it a shot. I did have a bite, lost my shrimp, and as I went back to the van to get more bait because I had the bait bucket in the van instead of with me, as it turned out, somebody stole my spot. There was a bunch of people on the other side of that spillway, and as soon as they saw that spot open up, they took it. But it was beautiful that morning. Weather was great. Water clarity was good. Just no bites while I was there. This was a very good place to fish, though. So if you're in the area, give it a shot. And I got hungry, so I decided to go to the Old Port Seafood Restaurant. Had some gator bites for lunch, and then I was off to try more fishing. Found some fiddler crabs along the shore where there was a kayak launch. So I picked up a couple fiddler crabs for tomorrow's adventure. I spent about 15 minutes trying to catch them and only caught 2. I really didn't have a longer, like 6-foot net. It would have been a lot easier to catch them. On the way back out to the main road, a local did tell me that there was a pier or a place to fish at the end of John Brown Drive, so I made a right, went down to the end, found this little bulkhead, I guess you would call it, some fishing access. That gentleman there was crabbing. He caught several crabs. Straight out here, there were some rocks that I got snagged on, but if I fished over to the left where you see that house out on that little island, there was a good area where I did not get snagged. Caught several pinfish, and I believe this is a croaker. I caught him as well, but that's about it. So after a full day of fishing Crystal River, my brother took me to a place in Crystal River called Seafood Cellar, a seafood restaurant that was fantastic. Got up early the next morning and headed to the Skyway Bridge Pier. The Skyway Pier is about an hour and a half south of where I stayed in Crystal River. As you can see here, the sunrise is coming up on the left side, And if you look on the right side, you will see the South Skyway Fishing Pier. Better view right after this fence runs out in a second. But that South Skyway Pier, I'm pretty sure is over a mile long, so it's a nice long pier. I've been there a couple times already, and the fishing is really good on that pier. There you go. There's a good view of it now. So we just have to go to the bottom of this bridge, get off the highway, and take the pier entrance. And here you will see the sunrise over the Skyway Pier. Beautiful morning it is. I had to turn the sound off on this video because the wind is howling this morning. I've fished this pier 3 times in the last couple months, and every time I've been here, the wind has been howling. I would say it's a solid 20-25 miles per hour right now. But as I span around, there's the Skyway Bridge there in the background. There's my minivan that I rented, which the cool thing about this pier is you can park right in front of where you want to fish. So at times throughout the day, I was able to sit in the minivan and fish and watch my fishing rods right there and just actively get to them when there's a bite. So I used the 2 fiddler crabs that I caught the day before, and I got a bite on each one, and one of them was this Spanish mackerel.
My first
The
fish
first
of the
bite, I
day,
believe, was a
Spanish
sheep's head. It
mackerel.
was a totally different bite, very strong bite, but I lost them around the pile. I was able to catch several pinfish, which I used for bait. Had a few bites, but nothing big. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did have one run off, but when I tried to set the hook, I think I pulled the bait out of his mouth. I did use the cast net that you saw there. There were schools of bait fish, but it was the first time using a cast net off of a pier, and I casted probably 6 times and caught 2. I guess they were called greenbacks. Used them for bait, but didn't catch anything. My neighbors there that you saw, they were from the area. They were 2 nice guys. They talked to me a lot about fishing the local area. They did not catch anything that I saw while I was there either. But it was a beautiful day. The wind died down. The temperature 75 degrees roughly. And there's a picture of the Skyway Bridge in the background. One of the tallest bridges around. It's actually tall enough that cruise ships can go under it. So that's pretty cool. Oh, here's me sitting in the van watching my fishing rods. I did have a couple problems with pelicans later on in the day. They would fly between the 2 bridges there and get tangled up in your line. They didn't get hooked, but your reel would scream like you had a fish bite, but it turned out to be a pelican. And as soon as you grabbed the rod, they unhooked or they weren't hooked, but the line came out from under their wings. So there's me waving at the camera. I was using my new gimbal. Worked out perfectly. So I'm getting better at filming. Not so much on actually catching fish, but we'll work on that in the future. Well, hello there, Fred. This is my friend Fred the bait stealer. I cut up some pinfish to use as bait and put a cloth over it. I diverted my attention for a minute, and Fred had a nice meal. But he's a pretty bird. I like Fred. So I tried to get close to him. He didn't like that idea and started to walk away. As you can see later in the day, more and more pelicans showed up. So it was kind of a problem between these 2 bridges. The amount of birds that were flying in between the bridges caused a problem with my fishing line. 2 or 3 times they ran into the fishing line, and luckily I didn't hook any of them, but it was a problem with them just possibly bringing my rod overboard, or they could have gotten hooked, which would have been a mess. In the winter months, you're not allowed to use sabiki rigs or anything with multiple hooks because of the bird problems. So it's late in the day now, probably 2:30 or so. I needed to start packing up and get ready to get on the plane. I do have a good 4-hour drive. A couple of ways I can go. I can either go across Florida from west to east, or I can take Route 75 down to Naples and then hang a left through Alligator Alley and then back up on the 95 side, which that's what I chose. Hey, Chris here from Salty Life. Just giving you a little background of where I've been for the last few days. This is the Skyway Bridge Pier in, I guess it's Bradenton, Florida, just south of Clearwater. So if you look, you should be able to see the Skyway Bridge behind me. Packing up my stuff, ready to fly back to New York. Winter time's there. Only a few more weeks, it'll be spring. I had an excellent few days off. Came down Thursday night. Went down to the Keys, Islamorada. Fished there for the day. And the next day fished Boynton Beach. Then I went up the Crystal River where the manatees are. Fished there. And then today I hit the Skyway Bridge Pier for 8 hours. So it's time to get on the plane and get the flock out of here. Alright, time to head south on Route 75 down to Naples, and then I'm going to hang a left, travel through Alligator Alley all the way to the east coast of Florida, then up north to Boynton Beach, drop off my equipment, back down 40 minutes or so to the airport, just to get to the airport in time for my flight back to Newark,
Route 75 from Naples to Fort Lauderdale runs right through Alligator Alley. And I don't know what, in my mind, I thought there was going to actually be alligators that you could see because it's called Alligator Alley. Didn't see any alligators, but anyway, it was an interesting drive. Closer to Fort Lauderdale, there was some, what did they call it? Outdoor recreation areas. It almost looks like you could fish there. So the next time I'm down that way, I'm going to have to check that out. That was pretty wild. If anybody knows anything about those areas, please leave a comment below. But that looked pretty cool.
Well, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed some of the content, and if anything, showed you some places where you can fish in Florida. So I'm not sure if this is an alligator or a crocodile. So if it's a crocodile, I apologize for misrepresentation. If you can guess how many miles I put on the minivan, I will reveal that in just a minute.